Hello everybody, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Racing TV. We hope you're fit, well, healthy and happy in these difficult lockdown times. Over the last few weeks we've been attempting to bring a little bit of cheer and racing chat to your living rooms by reminiscing, and this time around we look back at 2018.
At the final flight, Bouverdere and Mellon, they were in there together. They landed as one. Garrity goes for Bouverdere. Mellon is finding plenty. They race up towards the line, head to head, toe to toe, and Bouverdere just retains his title. Sam Crow just idling a little perhaps, idling and hanging towards the stand side. Black off is 3 lengths down, but Sam Crow is going to do it all right, and Sam Crow wins in good style and retains his unbeaten record.
DK de Boinville produces Altior to join Min at the final fence. They touch down together. They head up the run in. Blackjack, it is Altior has just taken the lead. Min is a length and a half behind in second place. Altior is powering away up the hill. He looked in trouble, but it's another victory. Unbeaten over fences. Altior is the champion chaser. Native River just in front, they might bite. Up the hill they come. Native River by a length and a half to Might Bite in second place. Native River is fending off the challenger Might Bite. They run towards the line. He's made every yard. What a run. Native River and Richard Johnson have won the Tomico Gold Cup.
And it's Tiger Roll under Davy Russell for Gordon Elliott. He'll win his second national if he can see out the final 100 yards. Pleasant Company's gaining ground. Tiger Roll seeing it out. Tiger Roll, maybe just from Pleasant Company at the line.
Could it be love now? Challenge on the near side by Alpha Centauri, solidifying happily, racing inside the last 100 yards. Could it be love on the far side, on the near side, Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri wins the Guineas.
Massar that leads the way in the blue colours of Godolphin. William Buick, Roaring Lion, now unleashed down the outside, racing up towards the line. Massar by 2 lengths to Roaring Lion and DXB, and it's Massar's Investec Derby. Saxon Warrior leads, Roaring Lion on the near side, far side Hawkbill, Roaring Lion getting his head down, joining Saxon Warrior, racing up the hill towards the line, Roaring Lion near side, the Lion roars at Sandown, and he wins the Eclipse. They're not going to catch Cracksman, he's absolutely relentless, it's 7, 8 lengths clear, Frankie saluting the crowd, a second champion stakes, and what a champion he is.
I hope that has refreshed your memory as to what happened in 2018, and we have got lots more to chat about as we work our way through the next hour and a half. We'd like to do so with you, so please do get in touch. studio@racingtv.com is our email address. Anything you would like to chat about, please do email us. Any races that you would like to see, likewise, please let us know. And at Racing TV is our hashtag for Twitter, so if you want to get involved via that handle, please do so, and we will endeavour to deal with your communications a little bit later on in the show. Now, as ever, I have guests joining me for the next hour and a half, and I'm going to say hello to Ben Fearnley now. Hello Ben, how's things?
Hi Angus, yeah, doing well, thanks. Difficult times for everyone, obviously, but keeping ticking over with time form work. Obviously, not any live racing on really, but we've got bits and pieces to be getting on with, doing books and annuals and things like that. So, as someone that's worked from home mostly for the last 5 years, it's a lot easier for me to transition to this sort of way of life. But it's obviously a bit weird not having any sport on and particularly no racing.
Yeah, but so to a degree your head is sort of still in the racing game, really. You're still working, still writing, still researching.
Yeah, exactly. Doing the horses to follow books for the coming jump season actually. So looking ahead to sort of 6-7 months down the line. But it's been nice to go back through the sort of 2018 season and look at some of these good horses I think racing moves so quickly that it's very easy to just be looking towards the next thing, and once the flat's over you look into the jumps and vice versa. But to actually go back and look at some of these good horses from previous years has been enjoyable, to be honest.
That's the thing about the sport, isn't it, Ben? It is so fast moving that we keep looking ahead. When a horse wins a race, we ask the question, well, where's he going to go next? So it is nice to look back, just take a pull and have a look back. And when you did so, as far as 2018 was concerned, what sprung to mind immediately? What was something that perhaps surprised you?
Well, I think the overall theme that I sort of gathered from the year, as much as 2017 was Aidan O'Brien's year where he broke those records. Obviously, the lads were looking back at that season throughout on Monday. I think 2018 was very much sort of John Gosden's year in many ways. He held such a strong hand in so many of the different divisions. He obviously had a neighbour who was a 4-year-old, but then he had Stradivarius, who really put his hand up and dominated the staying division, and then he had arguably the two standout 2-year-olds in Britain, certainly in Calix and Too Darn Hot as well coming through. So he just had such a strong hand, as well as in the 3-year-old division, obviously with Roaring Lion. So there was just so much in every division from John Gosden's team, and that was probably the overriding theme, certainly on the flat side of things, that I noted from looking back at 2018. Yeah,
it was very much the John Gosden season as far as the flat was concerned. Of course, we will talk about the jumps as well, but let's start with the flat, and let's start with the 3-year-old colts, and let's start with a first derby for Godolphin and for Sheikh Mohammed, with Massar winning under William Buick for Charlie Appleby. He of course won the Craven in devastating style when he made every yard of the running. There he is in the Godolphin blue in front, and he was very good this day, Ben. Things thereafter didn't quite work out for him in the Guineas, but he proved himself in the Derby. How highly do you rate him?
I think this was arguably near his best in terms of ratings. He was a sort of mid 120s Derby winner, so not exceptional, but pretty much in line. We looked at this race at the time, and obviously Roaring Lion was disappointing, beaten into third, sent off at odds on, and you see a horse beat him like that and you think, well, what is this form going to be worth? But it soon became apparent that Massar was a top Group 1 horse in the making, as it looked to the bare eye from this run. Obviously, when you picked the form apart, you were starting to think, what's happened to Roaring Lion. White Mockers, shouldn't really be beating Roaring Lion into second there. But it turned out that this was just a big step forward from Massar. He was a good 2-year-old, about 113 or so, but he improved to the tune of about £10 with this effort, and then very much backed that up with a good effort in the Guineas, and then by obviously winning the Derby, and a first Derby for Sheikh Mohammed as well.
Yeah, that success in the Craven came after they started him off, of course, on the dirt at Meydan, which he absolutely hated, and that didn't work for him at all. But he'd shown what a good 2-year-old he'd been. He probably should have won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, where things didn't go his way and he was forced wide on the home bend. But things went well in the Craven. When it came to the Guineas, however, arguably he was on the wrong side of the track, and the previously unbeaten Saxon Warrior was able to beat him. Yes, I think both Massar and Roaring Lion were probably drawn away from the action there, weren't they? They were on the right hand side of your screen there, out on that wing. Roaring Lion in particular was very wide. He ends up finishing right down that stands rail, whereas you'll see the winner Saxon Warrior come through with more towards the centre with the main pack. And obviously time would tell throughout the season that both Massar and Roaring Lion were going to eventually rate slightly higher than Saxon Warrior, who did beat them on this day. But this was a strange one in a way, because Saxon Warrior just looked to have the world at his feet at this point, didn't he? After he won this, there's plenty of stamina in his pedigree, a massive, powerful looking horse who many thought didn't look completely ready and completely wound up for this effort, which suggested that he was just going to progress and get better and better throughout the season and go on to win the Derby and be sort of a Camelot type horse for those same connections. But it turned out that really was his
his best effort of the entire 3-year-old season for Saxon Warrior, and Massar and Roaring Lion, the two beaten horses, they improved from that, and arguably on the day, looking back in hindsight, you'd say Saxon Warrior was very, very much positioned in a better spot than those two horses, and that undoubtedly helped him.
It's amazing to think that a horse of Saxon Warrior's ability never won again. He had 5 more goes, okay, in top-class company. He never won again, and that is very surprising given his connections and the ability that he showed not only at 2, but in winning the Guineas. So then we moved on to the Derby, and Saxon Warrior was fully expected to win, but he didn't really handle the track. He hung as well under pressure. He perhaps wasn't quite himself, and it was Massar who roared through to win the Derby for Godolphin. A massive day for Sheikh Mohammed, Charlie Appleby and the Godolphin team. And of course he essentially, in his pedigree, he was bred to stay this trip, Massar, and it really suited him.
Yeah, it did. You see the amount that he's found for pressure, really. That's been the significant factor in the performance, hasn't it? The amount that he's found under pressure. Roaring Lion comes there going as well as anything, just flattens out late on, and obviously you can see Saxon Warrior just hanging to his left the whole way in the straight. He met trouble as well, and he'd sweated up and was edgy beforehand, which he hadn't been at Newmarket, and simply just wasn't really in the same sort of form. But Massar was a worthy winner on the day. DXB obviously would go on to be a pretty good stayer over sort of 2 miles after that as well. So it's a derby that worked out nicely for all that Massar himself was injured after this, wasn't he? I believe he met with a setback and then essentially only raced twice in 2019.
Yeah, but a brilliant day for that man, wasn't it? Charlie Appleby winning the Derby. William Buick on board Sheikh Mohammed. It was his dream to win a Derby, and he achieved it with Massar in 2018. So once the Derby was done and dusted, well, then we moved on to Roaring Lion and the Coral Eclipse. And Roaring Lion, he'd looked as if he possibly might go the wrong way earlier in the season in the Craven Stakes and the Guineas. He showed a propensity to hang quite badly to his left, but Ben, starting with the Coral Eclipse, he just got better and better as the season went on.
Certainly did. I mean, this is, I think, one of John Gosden's best training performances in recent seasons. I mean, you talk about horses like Enable and Stradivarius, how he's kept those horses on the go, but I think Roaring Lion was a horse as a 2-year-old that could easily have gone either way. He had shown quirks, he had hung out to his left, he'd obviously shown a lot of ability, had arguably made the biggest and best move of the race in that Racing Post Trophy when he was beaten by Saxon Warrior. But John Gosden really harnessed his ability, his raw ability, and he turned into a better 3-year-old than Saxon Warrior. Ultimately beat him a few times, having been beaten by him as a 2-year-old in that Doncaster race, the Racing Post Trophy.
Yeah, he really started to get his act together. Oisin Murphy, I just got the impression that he's learnt about the horse as the season progressed and got him going forward. And of course he went on to win the Juddmonte International thereafter under Oisin. He beat Poet's Word and Thundering Blue back in 3rd for Fran Berry, who hopefully we'll talk to very shortly indeed. But he was good this day, Roaring Lion. He beat Poet's Word pretty comprehensively, just over 3 lengths the winning margin. Some people argued that Poet's Word didn't get the best of trips, but Roaring Lion was best on the day.
He was best on the day, and this is very, very solid form, isn't it? You look at Poet's Word, had just won the King George, of course, beating Crystal Ocean in a thriller. So he arrived here in very good form. Obviously, the trip probably wasn't completely ideal, but he has just essentially been outclassed by a better horse at 1.25 miles in Roaring Lion. This was his best performance in terms of ratings, timeform ratings. Roaring Lion, he put up a performance figure of 130, winning this one of the best Group 1 races of the campaign by 3.25 lengths. So this was really him at the peak of his powers, and he's won it readily in the end as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, he was very good, beating Poet's Word by just over 3 lengths. There was a man on board that grey horse running on in 3rd place who'll tell you that he worked miracles to get him into 3rd that day at a huge price. That man is Fran Berry, and I can talk to him now. Hello, Fran.
Afternoon, Angus. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. How's things with you? Are you faring okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Just taking over, as I say, and plenty of family time and becoming a good maintenance man around the house, I suppose.
Yeah, doing the best we can, I think, is the only way we can describe it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Just getting through it, in it, and stay well. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Look, we've had a chance to chat about Massar and Saxon Warrior, and we're talking about Roaring Lion now, and this is an appropriate time to bring you in because in that Juddmonte International, you were third on Thundering Blue. Roaring Lion was very good this day, but in terms of Thundering Blue's performance, for him finishing third, it was a big effort from him. It's a big step up.
Big step up. He'd obviously won the Group 2 Sky Bet Stakes before that, and John Smith, but he had a lot to find on ratings, and there was a big call by Dave Manuzia. He had to be supplemented for 75,000 guineas to get into the race, and people are, I suppose, wondering what were they thinking, especially in a Juddmonte. It looked as hot a race as we've had for a number of years there, and it's great that it worked out for Dave Manuzia and Clive Washburn, but Thunder Blue was just on his way up, if not at his peak at that stage, and the way it turned out under a few strides, he might have been second. Poets Word was possibly a bit flat from that King George race, but Roaring Lion was just sensational on the day.
Knowing Thundering Blue as a hold-up horse, as he generally was, and possibly he was going to be outclassed, a very sensible thing to do, just to drop him out and try and pick up some pieces, Fran.
Yeah, just try and follow through. It suited him anyway. It wasn't really a change in tactics from the style of racing, as you said, Angus, but he got fallen away, and there was a total change in plan or whatever when he envisaged for the race. Christoph Sumian on Thunder Snow, we'd all thought he'd go far side to middle at best, but he elected to come stand side, and as a consequence that made the race get very compacted, and you seen Poets Word there having to fight for his room, and Saxon Warrior as well, and it got quite tight, quite rough, and it kind of suited Thunder and Blue in that I was able to smuggle him through in the back of Poets Word to sneak into third. Yeah, really good training performance by David Manuzia with Thundering Blue. Let's move on and continue our chat about Roaring Lion, because he's very much part of the flat narrative as far as the 3-year-old colts were concerned. He went to Ireland, he went to Leopardstown for the Irish champion, and once again, Ben, he got the better of Saxon Warrior, beating that horse a neck. That's right, and a huge performance in that. Saxon Warrior never ran again after this race, and you can see when Ryan goes to front, he hangs into rail with Ryan, and Ryan has effectively got first run, but he hasn't been able to capitalise on it because of Saxon Warrior hanging into the rail, and that's allowed Roaring Lion and Oisin to get rolling and get to him quickly. And when he gets there, Oisin's horse rolls in a bit to his left, as he tends to do under pressure. He used to roll around a bit under pressure, but just confirmed him as the two best 3-year-old colts of their generation. And perhaps if Saxon Warrior was at his best under pressure, he might have got away with it on the day, but fair play to Roaring Lion for making up that ground. Yeah, Ben, I just want to talk about the ride that Oisin Murphy gave Roaring Lion. As we watch Roaring Lion progress through his career, it occurs to me that Oisin got more and more confident in this horse and was happy to deliver him late. He knew what he could get out of him, and that was a confident ride.
It really was, and it was a steadily run race controlled completely by the Ballydoyle horses. This is the performance for me, even though it wasn't his highest on ratings. This is the performance I'll remember Roaring Lion for the most, I think, because he overcame the run of the race, a race that was absolutely set up for Saxon Warrior. Obviously, it turned out afterwards that he had sustained an injury, so maybe he hadn't quite been at 100%, but the way that they set it up, Saxon Warrior burst to the front over a furlong out. He had absolutely every chance in terms of the way the race was run, but Roaring Lion just showed that smooth turn of foot that he'd sort of become known for, really. And Murphy absolutely, completely confident on him, as you say. He'd really got to know the horse over the last 2 seasons, and this was a really memorable win for him, I think. And Fran, just to talk about Ryan Moore on Saxon Warrior, I copped a bit of stick after that race for saying that I thought it was a brilliant race ride in defeat on Saxon Warrior, because I think Ryan realised something was not quite right and he just tried to coax him home. He didn't really go for him because he was lugging badly into the rail, hanging to his left. He suffered a tendon injury, and it was almost as if Ryan knew something was wrong inside that final quarter mile, and he still tried to win, but he still looked after him.
Yeah, the hardest thing to do is on a horse like that when the track car and he's straight into the rail. It's really good tight. But even if Ryan switch with his left hand, he wouldn't be able to get a smack at him because of the rail and the way the horse is leaning into it. And if you use it in your right hand, chances are he's going to get up on top of the rail and on.
Yeah, sorry, Fran, we've got a bit of a dodgy line there as far as that answer was concerned. We'll try and get you back on a clearer line. Let's talk to Ben about the QE2, because this is interesting for Roaring Lion, because they're dropping him back in trip to a mile at Ascot. He's not going round a bend, it's the straight mile, and he saw a lot of daylight towards the outside, Ben.
He did, and this was a case of getting the job done really against largely inferior horses on the day, but he showed his versatility. The ground was pretty soft, a lot softer than what he'd been doing a lot of his winning on, and some of his bigger performances had certainly come on a much sounder surface. But he essentially proved that he was versatile, and this was a good bit of placement and just mopping up what was a pretty weak 1 mile Group 1 race. And obviously he went on to run on the dirt after this and try something completely different again, which didn't quite work out. But this was his final victory of a really sparkling 3-year-old career on the whole.
Yeah, he became a superb racehorse, didn't he? Versatile, and I think a pretty fast horse, really. He had bags and bags of speed. Celebrations with Her Majesty. In the royal box, but he was a horse. I know 1.25 miles suited him ideally, but he wasn't short of a fair bit of toe.
No, he had that electric burst of pace, didn't he? Which we saw actually in that Racing Post Trophy, his final 2-year-old start. He quickened to the front really, really impressively, and just didn't really have the know-how to put the race to bed properly. Obviously, it's a big loss to all connections, Qatar Racing, etc. That he only had one season as a stallion. I think he covered around 130 mares in that time. So his first foals are just being born at the moment, so it'll be something to look forward to in a way. In sort of 2 years' time, 2022 season, we'll have the first sort of Roaring Lion 2-year-olds starting to race, but really a stallion career that was cut very, very short, just one season. Such
a shame for Qatar Racing. He has some foals on the ground now, which is great. David Redvers has been tweeting pictures of them. It looks some fantastic foals that he's got, and he'd be a sad loss to the breeding ranks. So Roaring Lion, what a season he had. What a 3-year-old colt he was. Ben, let's have a chat about the 3-year-old fillies now, and we're going to start with a shock, a real big shock that occurred in the 1,000 Guineas at Newmarket when Bilsden Brook won for Sean Levy and Richard Hannon. But if you look at the time figure that she produced, 114, it was a truly run race. She beat Lawrence by a length and 3/4, happily back in third, Wild Illusion fourth. The way the race panned out, I didn't think there was any fluke in this.
Absolutely wasn't, and you look at the horses, as you mentioned, that made the frame. You had Lawrence, who won the Fillies Mile, which has been a key pointer to this race, for a long time. Happily and Wild Illusion as well, were Group 1 winners as 2-year-olds. So all the right horses were in the right places, and Bilsden Brook, although she was 161 on the exchanges and 66 to 1 on course, she definitely did this on merit, and obviously she backed that up really the back end of 2019. We go back 6 or 7 months or so, she repeated this sort of level of form when winning the Sun Chariot Group 1, obviously putting up a similar figure as a 4-year-old.
Yeah, she did. She had the rest of the season in 2018 was difficult for her, Ben, wasn't it? But she was naturally on the back of this pitched in pretty deep.
Yeah, of course. I mean, she ran in the Coronation, where she probably didn't get the best of rides on the day, I don't think, and then she ran in the Nassau, which maybe she didn't really thoroughly see out that 1.25 miles. But she proved that what we thought at the time, that this wasn't a fluke. During her 4-year-old season, won 3 times, including at the highest level once again.
Yeah, was she to be the best 3-year-old filly? Well, no, I think would be the answer to that. And I think Fran will agree with me as we have a look at the Irish 1,000 Guineas, which was won by a really brilliant filly in Alpha Centauri, Fran.
Indeed, Angus, and she'd obviously been beaten in the Albany the previous year, Royal Ascot, and come back to Leopardstown and performed quite poorly on background, and in a Guineas trial, and Jessica and her team turned around to win an Irish Guineas, and you can see, on this occasion, it looked like there was perhaps a bit of a pace collapse on the day, and that it went off quite hard, but Donnacha O'Brien and the pacemaker got away in the field, but Alpha Centauri came through and grounded out, and we've seen what she went on to do to prove there was no fluke.
Oh no fluke about it at all. She really stepped up on a seasonal reappearance, and that signalled that we had a very, very good filly on our hands, Ben. And as Fran said, it was no fluke at all. She was brilliant in the Coronation Stakes at Royal Ascot. She tanked through the race. She produced a huge time figure of 129. She beat Threading and Voracious very easily. It was, for me, one of the performances of 2018.
Oh yeah, completely agree. I think it was for a lot of people as well. That 6th length win was really striking. She'd been a filly obviously that had so much scope and a pedigree that suggested she was going to be way more than just a 2-year-old. She was not your typical Royal Ascot 2-year-old by any means in terms of how she was built and how she was bred. And obviously she disappointed on her reappearance, and you were thinking, was she really going to put it all together as it looked like she might do during her 3- and 4-year-old seasons, and she obviously came to the Curragh, won the Irish 1000, and then really showed what she was about, winning at Royal Ascot as well in devastating fashion.
Yeah, it was just a sensational performance, and the clock tells us just how good she was. And then, of course, Fran, we went on to the Falmouth Stakes at Newmarket on the July course, and she proves the fact that she's pretty versatile here by being able to make all the running under Colm O'Donoghue.
Yeah, total change in tactics. Colm dropped her in the Irish Guineas, and he sat quite handy in the Coronation, but on this occasion, Newmarket July course, it does favour away from the ground as fast as it is, but she'd her rivals dead at the 3 furlong pole. She tired a little bit the last 100 metres, but but as you see at this stage, she's just all over them, and the rest of them are all just almost plugging home behind her.
Yeah, she had such a high cruising speed, Fran, didn't she? You could just do whatever you wanted with her because she could tank along on the bridle, and you could drop her in and find a gap because she'd settle, or you could let her roll along and she'd just go in your hands nicely.
Yeah, ultra versatile. It seemed to no quirks with her. Everything was very straightforward, and such a well balanced filly for a big mare. Jessica Harrington said that when she won her 2-year-old maiden in Naas that she was the biggest filly in the yard, let alone as a 2-year-old, and just balance she's shown, and she's just it was real deal and improved at racing. Yeah,
and Ben, just to finish on her, I think when we talk about her and that Coronation performance, are we talking about the best 3-year-old performance of the season? Was she better than Roaring Lion? Did she put up better performance than he ever did in the Judgment or the Eclipse or the QE2? What do you think?
I think Sea of Class would be, I might be wrong here, but I think Sea of Class might have been rated slightly higher than Alpha Centauri during her 3-year-old season. I'll have to double check that in a second, but certainly the Coronation run, I think, and the pre-Jacques Le Marois as well, that she went on to win Alpha Centauri. She was rated 128 after that, which is if you take the fillies' allowances into account, Roaring Lion I think was 130, so 128 with the allowance would actually place her ahead of him if they ever clashed.
Yeah, would have been an interesting clash, wouldn't it? Let's talk about the staying fillies then. I'm not sure that the Investec Oaks, Fran, was the strongest Oaks we've ever seen, but it was one surprise by Aidan O'Brien. Donnacha was on board. The horse was Forever Together. The favourite was Wild Illusion, who finished in 2nd place, and Bye Bye Baby was back in 3rd. It was a fact of 1-3-4 for Aidan O'Brien this day. What do you make of this, Fran?
Well, obviously the ground was very soft on this occasion, and the winner, Donnacha O'Brien on the winner came down the outside around Ryan Moore, and I don't think Ryan would have been as kind to anybody else unless it was one of his sales companions. You could see he had a good look to make sure it was one of his own, I suppose, but much best filly on the day. She went into race as a maiden, race 99 after being beaten, I think, in the Cheshire Oaks, and she was a very authoritative winner, and on the day you're wondering was it a track bias and that, but to be fair to her, she went on to be second in the Irish Oaks and the Pretty Polly afterwards. So she might have been favoured by the track on the day, but she proved that she's well up to Group 1 standard.
Yeah, Ben, things did pan out for her this day, but she was blessed with a ton of stamina, and that won the day for her.
Yeah, and just a rapid set of bits of progression really from her. I think she was just in the 70s in terms of her rating as a 2-year-old. Then she ran a nice enough race in the Chester Oaks when she was second, and then took a absolutely huge step forward here, and just shows you that these fillies can just progress rapidly when they really come into themselves, and that was very much the case here. This turned out to be her only victory as well, so yes. It's not a bad race. If you're going to win one race, winning one of the Epsom Classics isn't a bad one to pick, is it? And she obviously backed this up, beaten by Sea of Class in the Irish version of the race, and second in the Pretty Polly as well. But this was her at her very best, I think, the way she sort of stayed on. A really strong staying performance, showing the Galileo in her really in the closing stages.
Yes, no, absolutely. I thought it was a weakish Oaks, but as you say, she went on to run Sea of Class to a neck when it came to the Darley Irish Oaks. Sea of Class, Fran, this day on the outside, yellow colours, ridden super confident by James Doyle.
Yeah, super confident. Obviously, she won her previous 2 starts in Newbury, and she had a keen way racing up from that. And James, was in a smallish field, was able to drop her in and get her relaxed. But the way she travelled through the race, and he's no rush, James, when he did pull her out to go, and you can see now it's all hands and heels. And I think James had learned a bit about her when she won her previous start in Newbury. He gave her a couple of flicks at the whip with the backhand position, and she flicked her tail. So he was very mindful of that, and it was just hands and heels and rhythm, and he was well rewarded for it with a great ride.
Yeah, he felt he was always going to get there. Trainer William Haggis wasn't quite so sure, was he? I remember him sort of saying afterwards his heart was in his mouth a little bit.
Definitely, he was confident.
Yeah, good ride from James Doyle on a very, very classy filly, a really, really good filly in Sea of Class, and she went on to win the Yorkshire Oaks, of course, Ben, after that.
Yeah, talking about fillies that progress rapidly, Sea of Class is very much in that bracket, isn't she? She was second on debut at Newmarket mid-April, just roughly nearly to the day, in fact, and in 2018, and suddenly less than 6 months later, she was arguably shaping best in an Arc. This was the run before the Arc, the Yorkshire Oaks, where she was essentially just far too good for the rest of them. You had Coronet with that typical awkward head carriage, but she's a talented mare, a 120s mare, and Sea of Class has brushed her aside here with quite a lot of ease.
I was so impressed by this, Fran. She showed a blistering turn of foot to put the field away, didn't she? This was really impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just, whatever you thought about the Irish Oaks, and, she got off, but she was just so authoritative on this occasion, and, the way she improved, and the fate of James Doyle putting her as well, in her races, to be able to have the confidence to drop her out and get her settled, and, bide his time on her. It was joy to watch, and, it was unfortunate, we'll be looking in a while that perhaps they draw on the Arc beat her later on the year behind Enable.
Yeah, we'll come to the Enable Arc in a moment or two. Enable was one of the stars of the season, of course, for John Gosden, and started the season by winning the September Stakes to Kempton, and this was on the all-weather start, beating Crystal Ocean by 3.5 lengths. Crystal Ocean perhaps not quite at his best, Ben, but this signalled that all was well with Enable, and that the Arc bid was very much in the frame.
Yeah, and this set her up for just about the best end of season campaign that you can have, I think, winning the 2 of the biggest races in the world effectively on turf, the Arc and the Breeders' Cup turf. Beating Crystal Ocean here, as you said, who was probably just coming to the end of his tether at this stage. He'd had a hard year running a lot of the best sort of 1.5 races throughout the season, but he's still a very, very talented horse. He probably wasn't that far below form, and Able has shown that despite having met with a significant setback that kept her off for the majority of the season, that she's still got loads and loads of that 3-year-old ability that we saw in 2017.
Yeah, and then of course, Fran, it came to the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, and she was sent off the even money favourite that day, and she clung on from the fast finishing Sea of Class. Debates will rage forever as to whether Sea of Class would have won with a better draw. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, well, look, there's so many variables on it, Angus, in there. You know, you've got the weight for age, the 3-year-old, the weight for age, and Naval was given £7 to see a class, but, you know, God knows, you know, James had to ride her as he rode her from that draw, and, you know, he's at the mercy of the race, whereas Frankie had a plum draw, I think, in Sol too, from what I recall, and, you know, he was in a prime position all the way, whereas James had to work his way through the field and, you know, had the ground to make up, and the fact she got as close to Naval as she did late on, you know, if they were drawn closer together, it would have made it very interesting. But Frankie had gone early on in Naval, and perhaps she was, you know, just doing enough near the end.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, Ben, isn't it? It's an interesting conversation to have, because on the one hand, Enable fans will say, well, you know, she came off a 340 odd day layoff to win at Kempton, and then she's pitched straight into this top class Group 1 at Longchamp, and she might not have been quite spot on. She might not have been 100%, so she may have had more to come. She perhaps was slightly better than the bare result. And then again, Sea of Class didn't get the best of trips and had a bad draw, so it's quite hard to weigh up.
Yeah, it's a travesty really that we haven't been able to see a rematch between the two of them after this, because obviously Sea of Class was sadly, I think she died of colic, didn't she, in 2019. So you know, that rematch that would have been so good for every racing fan really never really came to pass. But I think, look, you can spin it either way, can't you? I think on the day Sea of Class probably shaped best, but Enable had reportedly suffered with another smaller setback after Kempton. She wasn't at 100%, and she still was able to get the job done, albeit getting a better run through than Sea of Class. Yeah,
I'll put my neck on above the parapet and say I think Sea of Class should probably have won on the day. It doesn't necessarily make her a better horse than Enable, and Enable's an absolutely brilliant filly. But I think on the day maybe Sea of Class possibly should have won. Let's talk about Lawrence. What a season Lawrence had for the Carl Burke team. 5 Group 1s Lawrence won in total, and all of them, Fran, by narrow margins.
Yeah, indeed, and what a tough mare she was. You know, she turned up at every dog fight, and you know, she gave her all. And you know, this win in the Sun Chariot was, you know, coming towards the end of a long year for her, and she still pitched up here and probably produced one of her best performances. She tended to come off the bridle somewhat early in her race over the mile trip, but she used to find plenty for pressure, and on this occasion, you know, she was much the best. But as you said, she only just does enough when she gets her Angus.
Yeah, she only ever did enough, but her form overall, Ben, stands up to the closest scrutiny, doesn't it?
Certainly does. She won basically the key mile event for 2-year-olds as a juvenile, and that Sun Chariot was pretty much her best effort on ratings. I think Fran mentioned that usually we were used to seeing her come under pressure more further out, I should say, than some of her rivals, and then just keep digging in. But I think the thing that strikes you watching that race back is the length of time that she actually went on the bridle. She was travelling really well, and that was obviously conducive to her essentially putting up a career best effort, a rating of 120 on Timeform ratings.
Yeah, she was absolutely superb, Lawrence. A fantastic year, 2018, for Carl Burke. He also had a very good sprinter in the shape of Havana Grey, so it was a very good season for Carl Burke. As Ben said at the top of the show, it really was the season where John Gosden controlled things on the flat, and he had Stradivarius, of course, who had one sensational season. Let's chat about him now. Here he is. You can spot him. You know him by now. Yorkshire Cup success coming towards the stand side. Fran in that yellow cap and quickening up in good style to go and win. He's some stayer, this horse, isn't he? And 2018 was a big year for him.
Yeah, Yeah, big year. From what I remember, it was the first year the Weatherby's Million as well, I think, the bonus. And, this has come back run on the way to the Gold Cup. And as is wanted, and he seemed to do in York a lot, he used to look towards that stance rail. And Frankie, was always mindful of that, to have him in that position to, challenge with the rail beside him to, just make things as simple as possible. But look, he never goes and wins by far, but it's always with authority, isn't it?
Yeah, he won 5 out of 5 2018, Ben, and the Ascot Gold Cup shots we're having a look at right now. Frankie receiving his winning prize from Her Majesty the Queen, and we can now look at him in the Goodwood Cup, but just about to get himself to the front. He, at times in his races, he looks as if he's in trouble, and punters always try to get him beaten. They always think something will be able to do him, but he always seems to just have enough to get the job done.
Yeah, he does. I think there was a nice quote from John Gosden that I came across recently that said you wouldn't want to take him on a night out because he'd pick a fight with someone who's 10 foot tall in a bar. And I think that sums him up. As usual, John Gosden absolutely spot on in the way that he sums up his horses. And he's just a really genuine and game and very, very tough. And even when it looks like he might get beaten, he just pulls out enough and digs in.
Yeah, he's a very likeable, tough horse, and he's a rare thing in some ways, Fran, because not all stayers have got the turn of speed that he's got.
No, exactly, and that's his biggest plus point, Angus, in it, that the fact that he can relax into a race, he travels away, he stalks, and he just can make up 2 lengths very quickly on horses at a vital point in the race. And then when he gets there, he'll only just do what he has to do at that point. But you always get the impression, like you can see here, that he's got a little bit left inside him. And possibly on this occasion in the Lonsdale, he might not just be at his best. The ground is very firm on that occasion in York, and be coming off quite a busy campaign with the Gold Cup and Goodwood Cup underneath him at that stage.
Yeah, he had a very busy season for a stayer. He really did, and he ended up by winning at Ascot, of course, Kipco British Champions Day, when he won the long distance cup, and he beat Thomas Hobson there by a length and a half. And that just capped off a sensational season. It's very hard for a stayer to win 5 top class races at this sort of distance on different types of ground. Ben, some effort, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously they put that bonus up for the 4 races in the series, ending at York in that Lonsdale Cup. He won that, and then he turned up at Champions Day and won here as well. And obviously beating mostly the same sort of horses across the season, but he turned up at every time. He did the business every time, and you have to admire that.
Yeah, and he does it into races that are running at different tempos as well, Fran. I mean, that race, if you look at the figures for that race on Kipco British Champions Day, the long distance race, that was very steadily run. The finishing speed percentage was 111, something like that. So he really had to come home strongly, and so they've sort of tried to get him beaten by going steady. They've tried to get him beaten by going hard and testing his stamina, but it just doesn't work. He's up to the job, however races are run.
And if you went back to that 3 furlong point on the home turn, with the steady pace, Frankie was pinned in the rail on third, following 2 Ballydoyle trained horses, and Ryan's horse, Flag of Honour, just slightly, changed his legs as they straightened up and allowed half a gap, and Stradivarius was straight into for Frankie, and that versatility and that, as you said, the sharp turn of foot that he has first there, that's the key to him, and his toughness and his will to win when the going gets tough.
Yeah, fantastic stayer, Stradivarius. What a season he had in 2018, getting that £1 million bonus as well. He trained by John Gosden, and a couple of the leading juveniles were also trained by John. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see much of Calix, but there is no doubt, Ben, that what he showed us was dynamite, really, and he could have been anything, this horse. This was his debut win at Newmarket.
Yeah, this was him very much announcing himself. Ran to an absolutely monstrous figure for a first time out 2-year-old. Props to our 2-year-old flat handicapper David Johnson, who put his neck on the line with a massive figure for this performance at Newmarket, and it was absolutely well and truly backed up in the Coventry Stakes at Ascot next time. But you can see there he's a little bit awkward, he's very green, but he's romping away from them in the closing stages.
Yeah, Fran, when I watched him win at Newmarket, he reminded me of his dad, Kingman, who did much the same when he won at the same track.
Yeah, and the interesting angle to that was that Robert Haviland rode him on that occasion, Angus. You know, Frankie was there, he rode a winner, I think an hour later on Amazing Red on that day, but, you know, they put Rab on him, there was talk about him being quirky and this and that, but, you know, 9 days later, Frankie did ride him into Coventry, you know, so he was a very clearly talented horse, and, you know, he obviously had his little quirks, but, you know, when he was on song, he was extremely good. Yeah,
shame we didn't see a lot more of him. I'm afraid the injury curtailed his career, but he certainly looked very good indeed in 2018. Now, Quarto, an unbeaten 2-year-old in 2018. He won 3 out of 3 for the Charlie Appleby team. We'll have a look at him in action in the National Stakes at the Curragh. Prior to this, Fran, he'd won at Newmarket a couple of times, but he went over to Ireland, he took the National Stakes, and he beat the future Derby winner, Anthony Van Dyke.
Yeah, he did, Angus. And most unfortunately, we never got to see this horse again because the sky was the limit for him. The way he won on this occasion, he's quickened up well for William Beard down the outside there, and you know, he's just possibly tying up a little bit near the end, but he's much the best horse. As you said, he'd been a future Derby winner, and we never got to see him again afterwards. Yeah, Ben, Timeform was suitably impressed with him. I think they gave him a rating of 124 plus. They felt he won with a bit up his sleeve, and the sky was the limit as far as a 3-year-old career was concerned for him. He would have he'd have been a leading Guineas contender, if not favourite for that race.
Yes, and it sort of, although we said it was 2018 was sort of John Gosden's year, Charlie Appleby was really, really clicking, taking his training operation up a notch, wasn't he? He had the Derby winner, he had this really, really promising 2-year-old Quarto, and almost a precursor really to Pinatubo, who was ridiculously impressive in the race, the same race the following year. A big shame that obviously he wasn't seen out as a 3-year-old. I don't know whether he's even still in training or whether they've retired him. I'm not sure with Quarto, but certainly in terms of raw juvenile ability, he was very much up there. 124 is a big rating for a 2-year-old. Absolutely massive. Yeah, that was a very impressive win in that National Stakes, and it didn't go through the gears there. There was a bit more in the tank, I think, as he crossed the line. So there's a couple of really good 2-year-olds, but there was another one who loomed up when it came to the Dewhurst Stakes and really announced himself into the Guineas picture. Too Darn Hot. Fran, how impressed were you with him as a 2-year-old?
Oh, he was a real deal, Angus, wasn't he? You know, like what he'd done in Sandown in them first 2 wins, you know, he was ultra impressive. And, you know, that Champagne Stakes Doncaster on the back of what we've seen in 2019 when he beat Phoenix of Spain, it stood up to the test of time. But, you know, he beat Advertise with
okay.
Occasion.
Quickened up towards the outside here. Frankie produced him late and he found lots of pressure, and he had a good turn of foot to Too Darn Hot, and of course he went on to have a pretty good 3-year-old career, Ben. He did, yeah. I mean, people probably bashed him a little bit because he looks so good as a 2-year-old, but I think, you know, he still managed to win twice at the highest level eventually in 2019, albeit it took a little time for everything to come together. But I don't think there's anything to knock him by saying that he was an absolutely exceptional juvenile, and relative to his peers, he was a better 2-year-old than he was a 3-year-old. And that Dewhurst win just tells you everything about him, really. He was keen throughout the whole race. He didn't really settle at all for Frankie, and just had that electric burst of speed at the end of it, beating Advertised and Anthony Van Dyke, who obviously went on to win significant Group 1 races as 3-year-olds as well. So the form has definitely stood the test of time. Yeah, and he went on to improve his Timeform rating, didn't he? I think he was rated 121 on the back of his Dewhurst success, and ended his career rated 127.
Yeah, he still progressed as a 3-year-old. It was just, I think people saw him put in that sort of performance at 2 and thought, well, this is going to be a Frankel-esque type of horse who's going to be rated in the low 130s, mid 130s or something like that. But he was good. He was very good as a 3-year-old, and I don't think I would be doing him a disservice by saying that he was a better 2-year-old. I think comparatively, looking at his peers anyway, compared to what he achieved at 3.
Yeah, indeed. Some impressive 2-year-olds. I thought Quarto was just chock full of potential. Shame we haven't seen him since. So let's move on to a few other little flat highlights from 2018. And I know somebody who told me I was mad when I said that I thought Cracksman would win the Champion Stakes on Kipco Champions Day over 10 furlongs in soft ground with the headgear applied. But he delivered to Fran this day under Frankie, the headgear helping him, and some cut in the ground.
Yeah, I think the soft ground, Angus, but definitely the headgear just seemed to put him in a different zone, didn't it? Frankie was very, very intent on being positive off him and stretching him into the straight, and he was just one with a degree of authority, and it's good to see a horse like him that's ended up being a stallion that trainers and owners are not afraid to put blinkers on, and he definitely showed the benefit of doing it, and in no way did it devalue his value or his performance. It was a step back to his best, and a great way to end his career.
Yeah, it was a stunning performance, really, Ben, wasn't it? And the early part of the season hadn't signalled that this was on the horizon, but everything aligned for him on that day.
Yeah, I mean, he scrambled home in the Coronation Cup, didn't he? And that probably, again, underlines the fact, I think Martin raised the point on Monday when we were looking back at 2017. I don't think Epsom really was ever his ideal track. And then Ascot, the Royal Ascot, at the Royal meeting, I think he got distracted by some fillies coming back in from one of the other races, and perhaps his mind wasn't 100% on the job. In that Champion Stakes, that was him at his very best. The blinkers focused his mind. The soft ground clearly does help him to an extent as well. And he was devastating, running to 136 time form rating wise, which is pretty much the same level, I believe, that he ran to when he won the race the previous year. So those conditions really suit him. A flat track, galloping track with cutting the ground as well.
Yeah. And of course, as ever in 2018, a horse trained by John Gosden. He didn't, however, get his hands on Winx. What a brilliant horse Winx was. And I'm going to have to read these stats out for you. She won 37 of her 43 starts, Fran. She won the last 33 races she competed in a row, and 25 of them were at Group 1 level. Amazingly, some people sought to knock her on the back of those performances, but you can't knock this Cox Plate win when she defeated Ben Battle, who'd won 3 Grade 1s this season. She was brilliant, wasn't she?
She was. This was a true test for her on this occasion, Angus, I suppose, from a European perspective, with Ben Battle going down and taking her on, and the pressure she applied to Ben Battle, 2 furlongs out, like, she's hard on her bridle around a bend, and Ben Battle is flat out inside her, and she just made him look ordinary. And I suppose, going back on a record, we were always hard on that. And won a Queen's Vase in Ascot in his previous life in Europe, and but she had a tough opponent in Ben Battle, a proven performer, and beat him with any amount of authority on this occasion.
Yeah, time form Ben 121 plus for that particular performance, but you'd rated her higher in the previous couple of runs, 128 plus, 129 plus. I mean, people did seek to knock her because she didn't travel, she didn't race internationally, she didn't go to Dubai, she didn't come over here for Royal Ascot, but really her record speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Certainly does, yeah, and you have to, even if these type of horses are not going to put up the huge ratings of, the likes of a Frankel or such like, you have to still admire the sheer consistency and the way they can just keep going, winning the same races year in, year out, amassing a huge amount of prize money as well. The likes of the Stradivariuses, the Winxes, they're probably, in terms of when we're talking about the top class in terms of our ratings anyway, just a tiny bit below that. But in terms of the consistency, that's definitely worth giving them loads of credit for.
Yep, and not only did she simply beat horses that raced in Australia, but she gave Ben Battle a good thrashing in that Cox Plate that we watched there. She was truly world class, an international mare Winks, and now retired, of course. So that was the flat season from Massar to Alpha Centauri to Cracksman, Roaring Lion, and Winks. Jumping coming up shortly.
Hi, I'm here with the dual Goodwood Cup winner, Stradivarius. On behalf of us, we'd like to say thanks to the NHS for doing a sterling job, especially our local hospital, the Newmarket, the Royal Suffolk in Bury, and Addenbrooke's in Cambridge. Keep up the good work, take care, and thank you again.
Well, here is Enable in Newmarket. Here we are to thank you all in the NHS for your valiant and brave work in the face of a sinister disease. Thank you specifically to Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, and of course to the West Suffolk and Bury St Edmunds, our local hospital, and our own hospital here in Newmarket, which is a centre for testing. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and Enable is very proud of her new sheet with the heart sign with the NHS on it.
At Racing TV, 100% of our profits go back into racing. Thank you for supporting the sport that we all know and love.
Welcome back, everybody. We've had a look at the flat season highlights from 2018. What about jumping? Let's take you to the early part of the season first up. And we're going to talk about Black Courton. And I know Ben wanted to talk about this horse in the context of Bryony Frost, who won the Quarter Star Novices Chase at Kempton in 2017 on this horse. Of course, Boxing Day, this came up, and he won at Ascot in early 2018 as well. But you wanted to mention Bryony, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people will associate Bryony Frost with Frodon, who gave her first Cheltenham Festival winner, but this horse, Black Courton, I think was the sort of probably her most prolific partner on the way on her ascent through the riding ranks, and at one point I think she won 7 of 8 on this horse during a stretch in sort of middle of 2017 and end of beginning of 2018, and this was the grade 1 amongst those wins, the Quarto Star. It wasn't a particularly strong renewal by any means, and I suspect that the best prospects in the race might well have been Fountains Windfall, who was unfortunately injured not long after this. But Black Courton, he was just so consistent and progressive with it as well. I think Paul Nicholls made didn't mind telling people that he thought this horse was essentially a summer animal that would mop up a few races around Fontwell, Newton Abbot, Worcester and the like, but he just kept on the go. He kept getting better, he progressed, he struck up a really good relationship with Bryony Frost, who excelled in getting him into a really good rhythm out in front, as we see here, getting some soaring leaps out of him, and this was probably their most notable success for all. They won the Reynoldstown after this Ascot. This was their great one. I think it was the first grade 1 for Bryony as well.
Indeed, Paul Nicholls celebrating that triumph at Kempton in the Quarto Star. A horse, Black Courton, who really sort of fired Bryony Frost into the big time, certainly into the public's consciousness anyway. What about Kalashnikov? Well, Kalashnikov has done plenty for Amy Murphy as a trainer. Won 3 times in 2018. 2 of them were chases later on, but the big win of the year for this horse came in the Betfair Hurdle, a grade 3 handicap off a mark of up 141, and as a young, relatively inexperienced horse, Fran, this signalled that he had plenty of ability.
It did indeed, Angus. He'd only had the fourth hurdle start on this occasion, and he's obviously a horse that has had since he went to chase, and he's been a bleeder, but at his peak here he was just very, very good, and the way he travelled through a race perfectly for Jack Quinlan, and he won with a degree of authority here that really signalled he was a horse at the off, and it was unfortunate that perhaps he ended up in front a long way from home, given his turn of foot when he was beaten by Somerville by late on in the Supreme Novices.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, wouldn't you, Ben? He perhaps a bit unlucky in that Sky Bet Supreme Novices at the Cheltenham Festival.
He definitely shaped really, really well, didn't he? I think he was very, very short in running when he got beaten, and that was arguably his big moment gone begging, wasn't it, in a way, because we thought that he would probably make up into a grade 1 chaser, grade 1 winning chaser. Obviously, he did win at Aintree, but other than that, he's possibly been slightly underwhelming. I think he has had physical issues. But that Betfair Chase was the performance I'll sort of remember him for, I think, in future. It was an absolutely filthy day. I was there, and he lit it up, really. It was a miserable day. And seeing him dominate that field on just his 4th hurdle start was really special.
It was, yeah, Kalashnikov for Amy Murphy. Let's hope she gets him back to something like his best. Now, Waiting Patiently won at Ascot. He won a couple of times in 2018, but he won at Ascot latterly in February. And this was, Fran, the Betfair Ascot Chase, and he managed to beat Q-Card and Frodon and Top Notch. He really announced himself onto the chasing scene with this Grade 1 success.
Yeah, he did. It was a very, very authoritative performance on the day. You know, he beat Q-Card, who might have been, you know, a light of former days, if you like, on that occasion. But the manner in which he done it was, you know, with any amount of authority, and you know, a huge win on the day. And an emotional win for Ruth Jefferson and Brian Hughes because of the unfortunate passing of Malcolm Jefferson not too long before that. And you know, it's a shame that we haven't gone on to see him do as well since, but he's clearly a horse when he's on song, is, you know, right up there with the best of them.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Fran. Ben, as far as Waiting Patiently is concerned, he was at his best that day, wasn't he, beating Q-Card, and he's obviously been a difficult horse to train and not been able to get him quite to the same level since.
Yeah, I think he's a horse that needs a certain set of conditions to be fully effective, and I think at Ascot that day, soft ground, just over 2.5 miles, I think, and a pretty good gallop to chase as well was something like his ideal conditions. I loved that race at the time because you had the old guard of Q-Card, who, you know, had a bit to prove coming into the race. A lot of people were writing him off and calling for him to retire, but he showed that he still had plenty of fire left in the belly in that Ascot race. And Waiting Patiently was the up and comer who was new on the scene. It's a shame that we haven't really seen him kick on Waiting Patiently after this, but this was a really striking win for him, and he was maintaining his unbeaten record over fences at the time as well. I think that took him to 6 from 6 over fences.
Yeah, he might not have kicked on, but one man who certainly did kick on after becoming champion conditional 2017-2018 was James Bowen, and he's on the phone to talk to us now. Hello, James.
Hi.
Yes, not too bad. How are you bearing up? How are you getting on at the moment?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm just back at my father's doing a bit with young horses and stuff, and trying to keep myself busy somehow anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to sort of keep yourself physically fit and mentally on the go as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm doing plenty of exercise. And just trying to keep busy. I'm doing a little course on the computer as well through Jeff. So keep busy anyway.
Good lad. Well, hopefully you'll be back riding soon, back in the saddle in the near future. But it's good to have a look back at what was a big season for you, 2017-2018. It launched you onto the scene big time, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously won the champion conditional that year. Got me going, and then through to the next season. Then I had a good season. So it was a good year, and all thanks to my mother and father, and Nicky Henderson, who gave me plenty of chances.
Yeah, indeed they did, and Gavin Cromwell gave you a big chance, didn't he, on Ras de Marais in the Coral Welsh Grand National, and you seized that opportunity. Tell us about that day.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'd say if it wasn't postponed, I probably wouldn't have won the race, but it all worked out perfectly. Gavin Cromwell was good to me then after as well. He was on top form on the day. I couldn't. It was a very good day. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rescheduled, the race, wasn't it? Tell us why if it hadn't been rescheduled, why you don't think you'd have won.
Well, there's a few horses that there's probably 2 or 3 horses that weren't declared again. So it was one of Gordon Elliott's, and that was almost favourite, and that didn't get declared again. So
lucky to get in then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's probably a bit more opposition the first time round, but it worked in our favour. So it all worked out well.
Yeah, what did winning that mean to you?
Yeah, obviously meant quite a lot because obviously from Wales, and it's sort of a race that you watch when you're a young kid and think you want to grow up and be there one day, and to win it as young as I was very special. Yeah. Yeah,
he's grand old horse. He won it at the age of 13, didn't he? He's a very strong stayer.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I was also a long way out. I mean, I was sort of flat out with a circuit to go almost, and then they just sort of started falling away. Then the last one down the back, and from there, he started going and passing a few horses and growing in confidence, and probably ended up getting to the front too soon. But he was pretty good, and he went away to win it well enough. Yeah, no, it was a very strong staying performance from him, and really you went from strength to strength as far as 2018 was concerned, because you won the Lanzarote Hurdle as well, didn't you? And William Henry, and importantly, you did so for Nicky Henderson. Good to team up with him. Yeah. He was very good to me that season, and he still is. So, William Henry won the Lanzarote, and I think I had my first winner in Cheltenham early on in the season for him as well, on Thomas Campbell. So, he's given me plenty of chances, and it was a good season. Yeah, no, he was good this day, William Henry, wasn't he? He ended up beating Spirit of the Games by 3/4 of a length, and I think he went on and go on and win it. He won at a big price at Cheltenham, didn't he, as well? Yeah, that was the season after. Yeah. But no, he's probably improved a bit since then. He was probably a good thing in the Lanzarote that day. So yeah, I just had to stay around really. Yeah, he won off 145 there, William Henry. And of course, you had a good season with Ron's Dream as well. Grand old performer, and Master Debonair as well was good to you as well. So overall, a season that really got you going, wasn't it? 100%, yeah. I was only 16 or 17 at the time, so it put me onto the scene, and thankfully the ball's kept rolling somewhat till now anyway. Yeah, it has. It definitely has, James. I think Timeform, when you won on Ras de Marais, described you as one of the most promising conditionals that's been around for a very long time. So I'm sure you'll go from strength to strength, and I hope that you stay fit and healthy and well over the next few weeks and get back on course as soon as you can, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks. Bye. James Bowen there, whose career really started in 2018 with a couple of big winners, the Lanzarote and the Coral Welsh Grand National. What happened at Cheltenham in 2018? Let's discuss a few of the main talking points with Ben and Fran right now. And it was the year when Footpad, who's not gone the right way really since, but Footpad was at his very best, Fran, wasn't it? We can see him winning the Arkle and doing so in grand style. Yeah, he was really at his top here, Angus, and as you said, it's a shame that he never really seen the best of him, particularly in last year. I think he's been shipped off to America, I suppose, but he might have a history of bleeding problems or something that's been curtailing his campaign here, and it might seem to good effect back in America. But on this occasion, he was just in a different league than he beat, like Brain Power and Petit Mouchoir with any amount of authority, and it's just a shame that he never really went on to be, up to the next level that we thought he could do, because when he was on song, he was top class. Yeah, Ben, he put up a very big time figure this day. The time of the race was very good indeed, and he's beaten Brain Power 14 lengths. It really was a tremendous performance.
Yeah, it was astonishing really, wasn't it, at the time? I remember he made a mistake early on, and you thought, you started to worry about him, because usually his jumping was absolutely superb, but he recovered from that. It was so far out that it didn't really make any difference to him overall, and that was just a ridiculous performance really on the clock, and in terms of looking at the horses that he had way in behind him as well. Obviously another horse, we're talking about a lot of these horses, but a horse where physical problems have essentially blighted his career in recent recent years, and it makes that season where he was unbeaten over fences even more special for his connections, I'm sure, because he looked on top of the world, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked like the world was his oyster when he won the Arkle, he really did. But things have not gone right for him since, and as Fran referred to, he is now in the United States of America, going to race over there. Champion hurdle of 2018 went to Belvedere for JP McManus, Nicky Henderson and Barry Geraghty. Ben getting the better of Mellon in a hard-fought finish.
Yeah, Mellon finishing second at Cheltenham for
yes.
a change, but this was the season after he'd won his first. He was winning his second, wasn't he? He had near enough the same sort of horses to beat. I don't think he will go down as an absolutely vintage champion hurdle winner, but what he did do is show up when it mattered. He had that really long unbeaten run, didn't he, after he reverted from chasing to hurdling. I think he was unbeaten for about 10 starts after that, and this was one of those starts, and yeah, something like one of his best efforts, that. Yeah,
no, it really was. It was 12 that he was unbeaten for under Barry Geraghty thereafter. Let's talk about a horse who's been hard to get right over the years, really, but he won at this year's festival, and in 2018 he won there as well. He won the Ballymore. Sam Crow. Fran, he's a horse he's clearly had his issues. He's had wind surgery. I wonder whether he perhaps was a bleeder or something, but when Gordon Elliott gets him right, he's really talented.
He is, Angus, and I suppose there's a lot of pressure on him this year, and he went and won at Cheltenham. He was, the Irish banker. He was odds on, and he got a big high person. He duly delivered on the day, and it was, a good performance. But he didn't have an easy run of it afterwards. I think he fell in the Irish champion hurl and had his training problems. But I think it's a credit to Gordon Elliott to get him back to win at Cheltenham this year and to run in at a high level, because it's not been a straight passage at all by any means. And when he got beaten by Faheen at Limerick, he looked gone, if you like, to some extent, at a higher level, and he's back to something like his best as we've seen here when he won this novice race.
Yeah, no, he was very good this day in the Ballymore, and Gordon Elliott, all credit to him really. There he is in shot in the dark raincoat. He's got him back to his best almost now with his recent win. They tinkered with his wind, I think, after he was beaten by Faheen, and they have sorted him out, as Gordon does with many horses who lose their way. Now, there was only one performance on the clock that was better than footpad at the 2018 festival, and it came from the brilliant Altior, Ben, who won the Queen Mother Champion chase by 7 lengths, beating Min, and God's Own was third. Politilo, the winner of the race this year around the grey horse, was back in 4th place. This was Altior winning how Altior generally does win. He's sort of finding a surge after the last.
Yeah, this was his best performance in terms of ratings that he put up in his life, I think. The following season he obviously scrambled home in the same race, really wasn't anything like as impressive, and sadly missed this year due to a setback. But this is him at his absolute peak, I think. You look at the horse he's beaten into second. Obviously, him and Min were very used to each other by this point. They'd met a few times before that, including in the Supreme. But to beat Min, who of course won at the festival quite impressively himself just recently, to beat him by 7 lengths, absolutely pulverised him late on. I think this was definitely him at his very, very best, Altior.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the time figure was 180. Footpad's time figure 179. It was a sensational performance on the clock, and one you'll always remember visually. It was superb, the performance of the meeting at Cheltenham in 2018. As far as the Gold Cup was concerned, well, it was a day for Colin Tizard and Richard Johnson. Fran, as Native River and Might Bite fought out the finish.
Yeah, indeed, and again a very good training performance. Get Native River to the Gold Cup and win at Angus. I think he'd only had the one previous run that season in Newbury a few weeks beforehand, and under Richard Johnson this day he toughed it out on his favoured softish ground, and just pure grit and determination for a very tough stayer.
Yeah, that was a bit of a war of attrition. The Gold Cup often can be, Ben, but that really was between Might Bite and Native River, taking each other on from a long way out.
Yeah, loved this race. Just such a likeable and progressive type native river. He'd won the Welsh National, obviously the Hennessy as well, the previous season, and he came to the previous year's Gold Cup, 2017 Gold Cup, ran a nice race in third, but I think it was a great training performance from Colin Tizard to back off him completely, design his season completely differently in 2017-18, where he gave him just one prep run in the Denman at Newbury, and he came back in a much fresher horse. In 2018 he came and absolutely dominated the race, and obviously saw off Might Bite in memorable fashion up the hill.
Yeah, it really was a memorable Gold Cup, but Cheltenham will always be remembered for two chasing performances, really, that of Footpad and that of Altior. Now, another horse that won at the Cheltenham Festival, the Albert Bartlett, was taken by Kilbrick and Storm, who was ridden by Harry Cobden, who had a very good season 2018, 4 Grade 1 winners. He's on the phone to talk about them. Hello, Harry, how are you doing?
Hi, Angus, how are you?
I'm all right, mate, yes, surviving. I think that's the best way of putting it. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, very good, keeping myself out of mischief.
Are you? Well, that's the main thing. I guess. What are you up to then?
Just doing work on the farm and trying to push that along while I can't go anywhere. So working hard still and trying to keep the weight under control.
Yeah, it's rubbish not riding, isn't it?
Oh, is it ever? I've never worked so hard in my life. I'm getting up earlier every morning and finishing late at night. So. It'd be good to get the racing back and hopefully earn a few quid again. Yeah,
I was going to say, working so hard and not winning any Grade 1s with it.
No, that's right, and the parents don't pay. So the sooner I'm racing, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fingers crossed it won't be too long, mate. We're talking about 2018. We're talking about your Grade 1 successes. We'll start with Kilbrick and Storm, who won the Albert Bartlett for you. You were riding for Colin Tizard, of course. You beat OK Corral 3 lengths. What are your memories of this?
Yeah, fantastic day. He was obviously a big outsider on the day, and I remember going into the race beforehand. Mr. Tizard just said to me, do whatever you want on him. You know how we like ours ridden. So we were good and handy the whole way. He jumped well. I got a lovely run round, and he stayed on really well. But it was a good training performance from Mr. Tizard, because he was not an easy horse to train, and they did well to get him there really, and to win that race was a hell of a training performance, and to get the horse there in one piece.
Yeah, it's a difficult race to win with a sound horse, isn't it? Because it can be quite an attritional contest, the Albert Bartlett. So they did well to win it with him. Oh,
definitely. I think they had to trot him up 2 or 3 times in the morning to even get him to run, because
really
he wouldn't be the most fluent of trotters, if you like, but he's a tough, genuine little horse, and thankfully they got him there on the day and he did the business.
Yeah, a winner at Cheltenham's always welcome anyway, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, days like that are the ones that don't come around very often, so to have a winner there is everything really.
Yeah, it was a big season for you, wasn't it? We go to Aintree in April. You won the Dunbar Maghull Novices Chase, that Grade 1. Diego de Charmille was the horse, and you beat Petit Mouchoir and Chantou Rock and Lady Buttons in behind. You're going past Petit Mouchoir in the footage we've got here pretty comfortably, Harry.
Yeah, it was another really good day. I sort of on a bit of a roll there, and he travelled great and jumped brilliant the whole way and cruised into it nicely and winged the last and landed running and did it well again, and he's one of those horses which unfortunately probably too good for the handicaps, but he's not quite good enough to win a Grade 1. So he was good enough that day, but he's a horse that's now sort of stuck in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, he struggled after that a little bit, didn't he? A few defeats, he ran in a few Grade 1s, and then he managed to come back and win a handicap late in 2019.
Yeah, he chased Altior around a good few times, didn't he? And then yeah. We managed to get him down to a winnable mark, and he went and won a few nice handicaps, and to be fair, his last one was pretty good over hurdles at Kempton. I thought he was going to win for a minute, and Tom Simmons' horse came and done us on the line. So it was just one of those unfortunate days. But he's one of those lovely horses that easy to train, lovely to ride. They jump very well, and he's a pleasure to have around.
Yeah, and I'll take your point though about him being quite tough to place for Paul Nicholls, but at least he got that big win out of him at Aintree. I do want to touch on Dynamite Dollars. I know his horse is very horse you think a lot of or thought a lot of, and unfortunately we've lost him recently, and that's such a shame. But he was a horse with chock full of potential, which was highlighted by what he did in 2018. This is his chasing debut at Market Rasen, where he bolted up.
Yeah, he had loads of ability. Unfortunately, we never saw the best of him. I always thought he was a stayer. So the further he went, and 2.5-3 miles would have been his gig. And I thought he'd have had a good chance at Aintree this year. That was why I really rode him at Cheltenham, because going into the race, I didn't really believe that we could beat Chacon, Poursoir, Altior, Defi de Searle. Politlog, I didn't think he could beat them, but obviously the race fell apart, and Politlog ruled it out and won well, and really deserved that one. But I sort of thought him to possibly have a really good chance at Aintree. He went there without too hard a race at Cheltenham, and it was just one of those things, isn't it? And we can't do anything about it. It was just a sad thing that sometimes happens, and unfortunately he always takes one of the good ones. Yeah, we just seen him winning the Henry VIII Novices Chase at Sandown. He beat Ornua there, and then he went on to take the Wayward Lad Novices Chase in good style from really useful horses in the shape of Kalashnikov. He was chock full of potential, this fella, particularly perhaps going forward over 2.5 miles. Yeah, he was certainly, and he's one of those horses that I always enjoyed going to ride because he was straightforward. He jumps well, and made the jockey's life very easy. Yeah, sadly we've lost him. Dynamite Dollars had a heart attack, I think, recently. We won't see him again, but he was a horse of mighty potential who, Harry, you got on with very well indeed. And may I say that it's Clan des Abots, the horse that you have made, in my opinion. You've worked out how to ride him, and he has responded to you in tremendous style. Here you are winning the King George in 2018. Yeah, obviously another fantastic day, one that I certainly won't ever forget. And he went into the race a bit of an outsider, but he proved them all right on the day, all wrong on the day rather, and absolutely positive. And it was a nice performance. And I think I think we still haven't seen the best of him. He's still improving, and he'll be a better horse again next year, hopefully. Yeah, one would hope so. I mean, he's Kempton and a flat 3 miles is him, isn't it? Yeah, he's good round there, isn't he? And I'd love to see him run around Punchestown one day. It's a big galloping track, and it right-handed, which I think always suits him. He edges a little bit right, and he prefers to go that way. So I think I'd love to see him running a Punchestown Gold Cup at some stage. That might suit him. It's interesting you to say that there's more to come from him. Just if I could just sort of veer away from 2018 for a moment, the fact that he didn't run particularly well at Cheltenham this year, is that just the track, do you think? I wasn't happy after jumping 4 fences. I never thought I was in a position where I could win, and I'm not sure. I can't really say what it was, but I don't think you could blame the track after 4 fences. I don't think we went particularly quick. It was just not on his A game on the day, and I wouldn't say you could blame the track. But on the other hand, he is slightly better right-handed. So when you take that into consideration, he's probably better off going left-handed again. Yeah, that might be the key to him. I don't think Paul will send him to Cheltenham again anyway, will he? I would have thought. But fingers crossed, top of the game's coming back in good form, and we'll have a go with him next year. Yeah, and remember that Clan's he's still only 8 years of age, isn't he? So there could be a bit more to come, as you say. Keep working hard, Harry. I hope your parents start to pay you. No chance of that. Really? Oh dear. Okay, all right then. Well, back on the track soon with a bit of luck. Stay safe and healthy, mate, and we'll see you soon. Cheers, Angus. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Let's discuss some other highlights from the National Hunt season. What a little horse this is. Tiger Roll, he won the Grand National in 2018. He's just he's just a phenomenal horse, Tiger Roll, isn't he? I mean, Triumph Hurdle, National Hunt Chase, cross country, 2 Grand Nationals. What more could you want?
Unbelievable, Angus, and we all know what he went on to do the following year, but on this occasion, you know, he's in a cheap piece for Davy Russell, and he jumps his way to the front here, and he does go clear, and looks like he's going to win, but he's all out in the last 100 yards just to hold on by that head, fast diminishing head from Pleasant Company. But you know, if you roll back 4 or 5 months back to when he got beaten in Wexford, at the time I thought he was gone. And you know, Gordon, you know, a testament to his training abilities, I suppose. He went the other route. He brought him to Cheltenham for a cross country chase in November, and then, you know, onto the festival, and rejuvenate him in that way. And it ultimately paid off with win the Grand National on this occasion, and he was probably more impressive the second year in the blinkers in 2019.
Good job the post was where it was, Ben.
Yeah, it was. I think he got there going very, very easily, didn't he? And you do see horses start to paddle in the closing stages of races, but I think it was slightly more patient tactics from Davy Russell in the second one that he won, and he was, as Fran said, he was more impressive that time. But I think a horse that hasn't always looked completely straightforward and full of love for the game. So that just really, and I think he still had a time form squiggle when he won that first Grand National, which I think is testament to how good a trainer Gordon Elliott is, because he is still quite a tricky horse. He's not the easiest horse to predict. But certainly Gordon's just found the key to him. He's found a way to keep him sweet and keep him in a good mood, and that's exactly what he's done over the last few seasons.
I suspect that Davy Russell's had a part to play in removing that squiggle, because he's a jockey who just sits quietly, and he doesn't get after them, he doesn't bother them, he doesn't mither them, he just sits nice and quiet, nice and steady, and just lets them roll along and find some momentum. And I suspect he's played a big part as far as that is concerned. We've got a personal highlight from Ben coming up for you, and it's the Betfair Chase that was won, Ben, by Bristol de Mai. Why was this your personal highlight of 2018?
Well, just from a personal perspective, it was a horse that I'd sort of fancied for this race for a good few months. I'd had a pretty decent bet on him. It obviously wasn't a particularly thrilling race to watch, but I remember I got dragged out to the shops with my missus during this afternoon and wasn't able to watch it, and I was sat on one of those chairs in those closed shops where you tend to find men looking at their phones, and I didn't have a very good connection on my phone, so I could only watch the Betfair market. I couldn't get a stream of this race up. So I essentially, having had what for me was a massive bet on him at quite a much bigger price than he went off a few months earlier, I was just sat there for 6-7 minutes refreshing the odds and watching them nudge down every couple of seconds, and I obviously knew he was making the running, but I didn't really know what was going on in the race at all. So it was a very, very long 6 or 7 minutes. It was relief more than anything, really, but I'll always be thankful for Bristol de Mai winning that race, certainly.
Hopefully your other half didn't come out of the changing rooms and spend all the winnings immediately.
No, I didn't let her know. I was
good.
I was safely away from her still at that time. So yeah,
best tactic. Keep it under your hat, Ben. Fran, come on, 2018, your personal highlight.
I'm going to be a bit selfish here, Angus, and go for Thundering Blue winning the York Stakes, the Sky York Stakes in July. It was my last group winner in the UK, and you know, I was doing a horse that was very good to me, and particularly on this occasion, I'd ridden him for the first time in the John Smith Cup, and you know, I'd only 19 of them to pass down the straight on that occasion, and I was second. So so it was, you know, and there was a big call to David to, you know, bring the horse here, and you know, he knew he'd like it for the track, and you know, but it was a massive step up in class, and you know, for it to come off in the way in which it did. You see at this point in the race, I've had to work my way through the field a bit, and he got slightly tight there. Richard Kingscote's horse drifted in front of me, and it just checked my momentum, and Fanny Norton got away, and me and Barocco and Ellercam, who'd been placed in the Guineas early in the years, you know, got a couple of lengths up on us, and he begins to tie up, and you know, they got racing early, and it just allowed my horse time to get into his stride, and he's on top of the line just. And just the manner in which he done it and the whole circumstances of the occasion, it was magic.
Brilliant. One just a quick point there, Fran. He was lugging left and you pulled your whip through to your left hand, and then he went again. It was a real adroit move from you in the closing stages there. Well done. There you are, coming back in. Big broad grin. And so you should have winning on Thundering Blue at York. So 2 highlights for you from the guys who've been with me all day. Many thanks to Ben, thanks to Fran as well. Stay safe and healthy, guys. Thank you very much indeed. David Beard's been in touch with us. We've been asking for pleasure. We've been asking for viewers' thoughts and memories of 2018. David would like to go to Perth and have a look at a horse running there called Court Dreaming, who he owned a share in. It was a big day for him. A fantastic day out, he said, and if we could include it in the show, he'd be absolutely delighted. So we're going to do that for you. Court Dreaming winning for the Nicky Richards team. Thank you for watching. That was 2018.
Court Dreaming on the left. Mac Totty's going to have to dig in here as West Coast Lass and Court Dreaming mount serious bids. They've fended off Champagne to Go over the last. Court Dreaming just nodded on landing. West Coast Lass with every chance under Stephen Mulqueen. West Coast Lass the near side. The far side Court Dreaming. Mac Totty is held in third. Court Dreaming just in front. And Court Dreaming has won under Ryan Day. Beaten West Coast Lass. Mac Totty third. Champagne to Go in fourth.